Okay guys, so everything's pretty much put back together the way it was. We've got a few things to feed through the cowl here. So the choke assembly, that rod just goes through a hole in the cowl. This is the fill line, so we've got to put that through the cowl. The vent needs to be actually hooked up to the cowl itself, and the ignition or the spark plug wire goes through a hole in the cowl too. So that's basically it. It's all put back together the way it was. I need to put the exhaust on still. Now this cutout, or the covering that I've removed here, the actual cowl itself comes back to about this point. So I'm going to cover this back up with more covering, but you'll never see this with the cowl on. So just a heads up on why I did that and why it's like that. But I'm going to put the exhaust back on and get the cowl back on. Alright guys, so everything with the front engine section has been put back together. It's basically put back together as per it was before. Of course we have the new fuel line, so we can actually get the fuel dot out this time. Just a reminder, don't forget your Loctite on everything. So all the bolts, the engine bolts, the cowl bolts, all that stuff's been Loctited, even the prop bolt there as well. So it's an important step. So that's all done and completed. You can take a nice look at the landing gear there as well too. Sorry about all the tools, but that's nice and straightened out now. And wheels have some nice toe in and a little bit of caster camber, whatever it is. Top of the wheels in just a little bit. So that's all done. The only things really left to do is we've got the rear tail to deal with. Still have to repair that. And we have the wheel pants to deal with as well too. Now the cables are extremely loose back here for the rudder, so we're going to make sure we tighten those up as well. But it's getting close. It's almost done. Alright guys, so we're going to do the fiberglass work on the wheel pants. So I've got some 30 minutes low cure epoxy here, 10 cc's each. And so that's, I haven't mixed it up yet, but this is the stuff we're using. It works good for most things like this. And what I've done is gone through and put CA on any of the parts of the wheel pants that need sticking or aren't are shifted a little bit. This one's pretty good. Nothing needed to be done on that one. This one had some areas like right here that needed to be shifted back in place and then CA applied. And then also the top section as well too. This portion was actually sunk down. So the CA just gets sanded off, so it's just sacrificial, but I just pushed on the inside, got it reset, and then put some CA on there and some kicker, and so it's put back to the way it should be basically, and then we'll put our epoxy and fiberglass on the inside, so, and then that spot as well too. So that's done. I've gone and cleaned the inside of these with rubbing alcohol, and we've got our fiberglass cut into little pieces there. I just took my sheet out and cut some random pieces off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mix up the epoxy, and what I do with that is put equal amounts of both in the cup. Get it mixed up so it's pretty good, and then what I thin it with is rubbing alcohol, and get it nice and thin so it's almost like a watery consistency like paint, so then it'll be easy to brush on. So you get this mixed quite well, and then add a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You're gonna have to do little bits at a time. If you put too much in there to begin with, what happens is it just turns into this glob like this, and it's really difficult to mix into the rubbing alcohol. So it takes a little bit, and then what happens once it starts to mix is you'll see it turn into like a creamy consistency. There you can see the cloudy consistency, I guess, is maybe, sorry, not consistency, cloudy appearance kind of showing up. Just rubbing my trusty bent screwdriver that you guys have seen in many videos if you've watched. I use this for pretty much everything. So There we go. So that's a pretty good consistency, I think, for brushing it on. It's just like paint, if I was to compare it to something. So that's done. So we got lots of work time with that for 30 minutes. And then just use an acid brush. Get these at my local hardware store. You can get them at the hobby store as well too. But that's what I painted on with. So all we're going to do in this point is we'll work on this area first. We're just going to put some epoxy down in that lower area. So just brush it on. And the wheel pants don't need to be really pretty because you're never looking at them on the inside. So just paint it on like that. Going to take one of the longer pieces, lay that down with a brush that's not coated in epoxy, and lay that piece down. I'm just going to kind of compare. So we've got the fiberglass covering that section. We're good there. And then the other side, we're pretty good. So that's probably fine. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to lay a piece like this in there just across the damaged area, and that'll help add a little bit of extra strength and go past the areas that are feathered out on the other side. So we'll put that down. There we go. So now we've got some strands crossing directions, which is helpful for strength. Okay, so that portion's done. So then all I do from there is just go through and so on this wheel pant I'm just going to add a little piece here, a little piece there, and then probably one more piece across this side, just because we're flexed out a little bit there. So I'll do that one next. Okay, and you don't want to have gobs of epoxy on there. That makes it more brittle than it should be. So like this is already very, very wet, but it's fine because again it's a wheel pant. It's not really a big deal, but that's kind of what we're looking for. So that side's done, and then we just need one on this side, one on that side. Okay, so that side's done. It's not a big deal if that overhangs. It's going to be very easy to cut off once it's cured. We'll do this other side. And again, this is all getting sanded and repainted as well, so that's why I'm not overly concerned about getting anything on the outside. Okay, so that one's done. We're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. I might put one more on the top of this guy if I've got one piece left, but we'll do the other one first, see what we got left, and then maybe put one more layer on the top of that. But that's the process. Okay guys, have the plane upside down, cleaned up pretty much all the surfaces, and just like actually wipe them down when I say clean up. I've also tightened up the rudder cables as well. They were loose back here, and then the elevator cables were loose too. So what I do with those is just put some CA in there and some kicker, and that helps fill up the threads where the rod threads into the clevis, and then of course tighten down the nut and everything as well. So that's all done. Rudder's done, and I've also reinforced the rudder, so it's upside down right now because I had to glue this one last, or I did glue that one last. So what I did with the rudder is just held it over because the top was bent that way. Held it over with my hand, Just put some thin CA in there, some kicker in the joints first, got it nice and straight. That was before I even added the blocking into the rudder. And then the blocking is a little bit narrower than the ribs. So the idea there is that when we put the new covering on the rudder, we'll still see the ribs, but we won't see the blocking that's been installed. So probably was fine without the blocking, but just because this joint in particular was severed all the way through, I just wanted to make sure we had some support there, and then put that one in as well too. Just some good preventative measures for possibly it coming apart. Obviously we don't want it to come apart. So now we're going to redo the covering on the rudder, and we'll flip it over and go from there. All right guys, tail's all done. Pretty straightforward, didn't really need to show you any of this, but the covering was replaced on there. Just did the join line down here. Pretty straightforward. The red is slightly different, but because of the way it was put on and the joint being down near the bottom, you can't even really tell. So anyways, she's rudder's all fixed. Nice and solid. Happy with the repair. So all that we're left waiting to do is waiting for the wheel pants. So once these are cured, which will probably be maybe tomorrow, once those are cured, we will get them painted and fixed. We made a mess of the bench. But anyways, that is what we're waiting for. Okay guys, both of the wheel pants have been sanded. Now what we have to do is go in and fill the low areas. We've got a couple areas that need to be filled, not very many though. And I'll just show you here. Generally I use a product like this. I just pick it up at the local automotive store. Polyester glazing putty. Works really well. It's nice and light compared to something like Bondo. Now I wasn't able to pick some of this up when I was doing my last project that I needed this stuff with. So I'm just going to use the Bondo. It's not a big deal, just different to work with. But I'm going to use this to fill the wheel pants, just so I can use the rest of that before I open up this stuff up. So. All right, guys, the Bondo has cured, so it's time to sand this out. So it's pretty much the same process as before when we were sanding the high spots. So now we're just going through and making this as smooth as possible. Once that's done, then we'll put primer on it, and that'll show up any imperfections. But that's basically the process, fairly straightforward. All right, guys, so the wheel pants have been all sanded. Just to tell you what I do here, so using the palm sander first of all to get everything low, and then what happens is you can't see it anymore, but when you're using the palm sander, you get a bunch of little circles on there, and those circles will show up in the primer. You can get them out by sanding after you prime, which we might have to do anyways, but so what I did was went inside in the kitchen, just used 120 grit sandpaper, and then underneath the kitchen tap just wet sanded each of the wheel pants, and it helps to get rid of the little circles. They're right here. I don't know if you can pick them up in the light, maybe right there, but sanding it helps to get rid of those little circles. So these units are basically ready to paint. Okay guys, wheel pants have been completed. They've been painted, and I clear coated them yesterday, so they're all ready to be installed on the Taylorcraft. So we'll get those installed, and then we will show you the final product. All right guys, wheel pants have been installed. Just a little note here, it's kind of nice to make sure when you put these on, usually they've got a little bit of play in the bolt holes, so you just make sure you line them up so they're level with each other. So this one had to be angled all the way back, and that one had a lot less movement on it. So anyways, that's the wheel pants. All right, guys, and that's the end of this crash rebuild on the Taylorcraft. I think it worked out really, really well. Didn't run into any issues, and I know the owner is going to be happy with the final product. It's also nice that we got some of the potential bugs and little demons worked out, because if we would have gone flying with that tank the way it was the first time we go inverted, it would have probably quit. The engine would have quit. So anyways, guys, so she is ready to go, ready for this upcoming flying season, and that's it. So planning on delivering this, the Taylorcraft and Corsair, this coming Friday to the owner. So I know he's going to be happy to have these in his garage, and we'll clean up some space in my garage here. So right behind me, I have the next project on the menu, and it's an interesting one. It's a unique project, and you guys will hopefully find it very interesting. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video. If this is your first time here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Also, when you hit the subscribe button, don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified when I release new videos. And lastly, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. That'd be very helpful. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video.